The night was still, the kind of stillness that feels heavy, like the world is holding its breath. Clara sat cross-legged on her bed, her laptop glowing faintly in the dim light of her room. She had just finished her masterpiece, a female ghost character so hauntingly real, so terrifyingly detailed, that even she felt a shiver run down her spine as she stared at it. The face was pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen, and long, tangled hair that framed a twisted, sorrowful expression. The body was ethereal, almost translucent, with tattered robes that seemed to float in an invisible wind. It was perfect. It was her magnum opus. Clara had spent the last 3 days obsessively working on this character, fueled by the memory of her rejection. The YouTuber, a popular horror animator named Marcus, had rejected her earlier designs, saying they lacked soul. But this time, when she sent him the new creation, he was ecstatic. He called it genius, terrifying, and unforgettable. He even paid her a hefty sum for it, on the condition that she would never recreate or share the character with anyone else. Clara, ever the professional, signed the contract without hesitation. She was proud of her work, and the validation from Marcus felt like a turning point in her career. But now, as she lay in bed, her mind wandered to the strange feeling she had while designing the character. It was as if the face had come to her in a dream, fully formed, as though it had always existed somewhere in the depths of her subconscious. She shook off the unease, attributing it to exhaustion, and finally drifted into a restless sleep. The next morning, Clara packed her bags for the beach vacation with her college friends. They were staying at the luxurious Seabreeze Hotel, a sprawling resort known for its pristine beaches and opulent amenities. The group spent the first day laughing, sunbathing, and reminiscing about their college days. Clara felt a sense of normalcy she hadn't experienced in weeks. But as night fell, the unease returned. It started with a flicker of movement in the corner of her eye. Clara was walking down the dimly lit hotel corridor, returning to her room after a late-night swim, when she saw it, a figure standing at the far end of the hallway. It was a woman, her face pale and hollow-eyed, her hair long and tangled, her tattered robes floating as if caught in an unseen breeze. Clara froze. It was her creation, the ghost she had designed for Marcus. Her heart pounded as she blinked, trying to convince herself it was a trick of the light. But when she opened her eyes, the figure was still there, closer now, its hollow eyes locked onto hers. Clara stumbled backward, her breath catching in her throat. She turned and ran, her footsteps echoing loudly in the empty corridor. When she reached her room, she slammed the door shut and leaned against it, her chest heaving. Her friends, already asleep, didn't wake. Clara spent the rest of the night sitting on the edge of her bed, clutching a blanket, her eyes darting to every shadow in the room. She told herself it was just her imagination, a side effect of working on horror designs for too long. But deep down, she knew better. The next few days were a blur of terror. The ghost appeared everywhere, in the reflection of a mirror, in the corner of the hotel restaurant, even standing at the foot of her bed while she slept. Clara tried to tell her friends, but they brushed it off, saying she was just stressed or overtired. "You've been working too hard," they said. "You need to relax." But Clara couldn't relax. The ghost was real. She could feel its presence, a cold, suffocating weight that followed her wherever she went. One night she woke up to find it lying next to her in bed, its hollow eyes staring into hers, its mouth twisted into a grotesque smile. Clara screamed, waking her friends, but by the time they turned on the lights, the ghost was gone. Desperate, Clara decided to leave the hotel. She packed her bags and drove home, hoping the ghost would stay behind. But it didn't. It followed her, appearing in her apartment, in her studio, even in her dreams. She tried to destroy the design, deleting the files from her laptop and burning the sketches, but it made no difference. The ghost was no longer bound by her creations. It had a life of its own. One night, as Clara sat alone in her apartment, the ghost appeared again, this time more solid, more real than ever. It spoke, its voice a chilling whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "You gave me life," it said. "You gave me form, but you forgot one thing, a soul. And now, I need yours." Clara's blood ran cold. She realized too late what she had done. In her quest for perfection, she had created something far beyond her control. The ghost wasn't just a character. It was a manifestation of her deepest fears, her insecurities, her obsession with being the best. And now, it wanted her. The next morning, Clara's friends found her apartment empty. Her laptop was on, the screen displaying the ghost character she had designed, its hollow eyes staring out at them. There was no sign of Clara, only a single sketch left on her desk. It was a self-portrait, but her face was twisted, her eyes hollow, her expression one of pure terror. Marcus uploaded his new horror video a week later. It featured the ghost character Clara had designed, but this time, it was different. The ghost's face was Clara's. The video went viral, breaking all of Marcus's previous records. People called it the most terrifying thing they had ever seen. But Marcus never heard from Clara again. Her friends searched for her, but she was gone. Clara's disappearance left her friends in shock, but life moved on. Marcus, the YouTuber, continued to ride the wave of success from the viral video featuring Clara's ghost character. The video's popularity soared, and fans demanded more. Marcus, eager to capitalize on the hype, decided to create a sequel. But there was one problem. He needed Clara's expertise to design another character as terrifying as the first. When Clara didn't respond to his messages, Marcus grew frustrated. He dug through his files, hoping to find any unused designs she might have sent him. That's when he stumbled upon something strange. A folder labeled "Do Not Open" buried deep in his computer. Inside was a single file, a video. Curiosity got the better of him. He clicked play. The video was grainy, as if recorded on an old camera. It showed Clara in her studio, working on her laptop. She looked exhausted, her eyes bloodshot, her hair disheveled. She was muttering to herself, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know," she whispered, her hands trembling as she sketched furiously on her tablet. The camera angle shifted, revealing the screen. She was designing the ghost character, but something was wrong. The face on the screen wasn't static. It was moving, its hollow eyes blinking, its mouth twisting into a grotesque smile. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He paused the video, his heart racing. This had to be some kind of prank, right? Clara was known for her dark sense of humor, but as he watched further, the video took a horrifying turn. Clara suddenly looked up from her laptop, her face pale with terror. She stared directly into the camera, her eyes wide. "It's here," she whispered. "It's watching me." The screen flickered, and for a split second, the ghost appeared behind her, its hollow eyes glowing, its tattered robes floating as if caught in an unseen breeze. Clara screamed, and the video cut to static. Marcus slammed his laptop shut, his hands shaking. He tried to convince himself it was just a clever edit, but deep down, he knew better. Something was very, very wrong. Determined to uncover the truth, Marcus reached out to Clara's friends. They told him about the strange occurrences at the hotel, how Clara had claimed to see the ghost everywhere, how she had vanished without a trace. Marcus felt a pang of guilt. He had pushed her to create something terrifying, and now she was gone. That night, Marcus decided to revisit the ghost character. He opened the design files Clara had sent him, hoping to find clues. As he scrolled through the layers, he noticed something odd, a hidden layer he hadn't seen before. It contained a single line of text, written in a language he didn't recognize. He copied the text and ran it through a translation program. The result made his blood run cold. "I am free. Thank you." The next morning, Marcus woke up to find his studio in disarray. His computer was on, the screen displaying the ghost character. The hollow eyes seemed to follow him as he moved, He tried to shut it down, but the computer wouldn't respond. Instead, the ghost's face began to distort, its mouth stretching into a wide, grotesque grin. Marcus stumbled backward, his heart pounding. He grabbed his phone and called Clara's friends, but the line was filled with static. Suddenly, the ghost's voice echoed through the speakers, low and guttural. "You wanted horror," it said. "Now you have it." The screen went black, and Marcus felt a cold breath on the back of his neck. He turned around, but there was nothing there. When he looked back at the screen, the ghost was gone, replaced by a single line of text. "Find her." Marcus spent the next few days in a state of paranoia. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The ghost haunted him, appearing in reflections, in shadows, in his dreams. He knew he had to find Clara, but he had no idea where to start. Then, one night, he received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "She's waiting." The email contained a single attachment, a video file. Marcus hesitated before clicking play. The video showed Clara, but she was different. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, her expression blank. She was sitting in a dark room, her hands resting on a table. Behind her, the ghost stood, its tattered robes floating, its hollow eyes glowing. "Marcus," Clara said, her voice monotone. "You wanted more. Come and find me." The screen cut to an address, followed by a date and time. Marcus recognized the location. It was an abandoned asylum on the outskirts of town, a place rumored to be haunted. The night of the rendezvous, Marcus arrived at the asylum, his heart pounding. The building loomed in the darkness, its windows shattered, its walls covered in ivy. He stepped inside, the air thick with the smell of decay. The floor creaked beneath his feet as he made his way through the corridors, his flashlight casting long shadows on the walls. He found Clara in the asylum's chapel, sitting in the front pew. She looked exactly as she had in the video, pale, hollow-eyed, lifeless. The ghost stood behind her, its hollow eyes glowing. "Clara?" Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. She turned to look at him, her expression blank. "You wanted horror," she said. "Now you're part of it." The ghost floated toward him, its tattered robes billowing. Marcus tried to run, but the doors slammed shut, trapping him inside. The last thing he saw was the ghost's grotesque smile as it reached for him. The next morning, Marcus's studio was found empty. His computer was on, the screen displaying a new video. It showed Marcus, his face pale, his eyes hollow, sitting in the asylum's chapel. Behind him, the ghost stood, its hollow eyes glowing. The video ended with a single line of text. "The horror continues." Marcus's disappearance sent shockwaves through the online horror community. Fans speculated wildly about what had happened to him, but no one could explain the eerie video he had left behind. The ghost character Clara had designed became an internet legend, its hollow eyes and twisted smile haunting the nightmares of millions. But for Clara's friends, the mystery was far from over. Clara's closest friend, Emily, refused to believe that Clara was gone for good. She had known Clara since college and couldn't accept that her friend had simply vanished. Determined to uncover the truth, Emily gathered a small group of Clara's friends, Liam, a tech-savvy programmer, and Sarah, a skeptic with a knack for solving puzzles. Together, they decided to investigate Clara's disappearance and the strange occurrences surrounding the ghost character. Their first stop was Clara's apartment. The place was exactly as it had been described. Empty, with her laptop still on, displaying the ghost's haunting image. Liam examined the laptop, searching for clues. He discovered a hidden folder labeled Project Hollow Eyes, containing corrupted files and a single text document. The document was filled with fragmented sentences, as if Clara had been writing in a trance. "It's not just a design. It's alive. It feeds on fear. It's using me. I can't stop it." Sarah noticed something else. A sketchpad on Clara's desk. The pages were filled with drawings of the ghost, but the final sketch was different. It showed the ghost standing in front of an old, decrepit house, its hollow eyes glowing. At the bottom of the page, Clara had scribbled an address. The address led them to an isolated, crumbling house on the edge of a dense forest. The place looked like it hadn't been inhabited in decades, its windows shattered and its roof sagging. As they approached, Emily felt a chill run down her spine. The air was unnaturally cold, and the silence was deafening. Inside, the house was a labyrinth of dark corridors and empty rooms. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the floor was littered with broken furniture and shattered glass. In the center of the house, they found a room that made their blood run cold. The walls were covered in sketches, hundreds of them, all depicting the ghost. Some were crude, as if drawn by a child, while others were disturbingly detailed. In the center of the room was an old, dusty computer. Liam booted it up, and the screen flickered to life, displaying a single line of text. "You shouldn't have come." Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, and the sketches on the walls began to move. The ghost's hollow eyes seemed to glow, and its twisted smile widened. The friends heard a low, guttural whisper echoing through the room. "You're next." Panicked, they searched the room for answers. Sarah noticed a book lying on the floor, an ancient leather-bound tome with the title, The Codex of Shadows. She flipped through the pages, her hands trembling, until she found a passage that made her heart stop. The book described a ritual used by artists to bring their creations to life. But there was a catch. The creation would eventually consume its creator, feeding on their fear and creativity until nothing was left. The only way to stop it was to destroy the original design and perform a counter-ritual, but it required a sacrifice. Emily realized what had happened. Clara had unknowingly performed the ritual while designing the ghost, and now it was using her as a vessel. The ghost wasn't just a character, it was a malevolent entity that had escaped into the real world. The friends knew what they had to do. They returned to Clara's apartment and retrieved the original design files from her laptop. Using the instructions from the Codex of Shadows, they prepared the counter-ritual. It required them to burn the original design while reciting an incantation, but there was a catch. The person performing the ritual would be consumed by the ghost's curse. Emily volunteered, refusing to let anyone else take the risk. As she set the design files on fire, the ghost appeared, its hollow eyes glowing with rage. The room grew colder, and the air filled with the sound of whispers. Emily began the incantation, her voice shaking but determined. The ghost lunged at her, its tattered robes billowing, but Emily stood her ground. As the flames consumed the design, the ghost let out a blood-curdling scream. Its form began to dissolve, its hollow eyes fading into nothingness. But just as it disappeared, it reached out and touched Emily's hand, leaving a faint, glowing mark. The ritual worked. The ghost was gone, and Clara's apartment felt normal again. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. The mark on her hand glowed faintly, and she could still hear the ghost's whispers in the back of her mind. Days later, Emily received a package in the mail. Inside was a sketch pad filled with drawings, all of the ghost, its hollow eyes staring out at her. At the bottom of the page was a note in Clara's handwriting. "It's not over. It's never over." Emily realized the truth too late. The ghost wasn't truly gone. It had transferred its curse to her. She could feel it inside her, feeding on her fear, waiting for the right moment to return. Emily tried to warn Liam and Sarah, but they didn't believe her. They thought she was just traumatized by what had happened. But as the days passed, Emily began to change. Her eyes grew hollow, her skin pale, and her sketches became darker, more twisted. One night, Liam received a video from Emily. It showed her sitting in her apartment, her face blank, her eyes glowing. Behind her, the ghost stood, its tattered robes floating, its hollow eyes locked onto the camera. "The horror continues," Emily whispered, her voice monotone. The screen cut to static, and Liam never heard from her again. The ghost had found a new vessel, and the cycle of terror began anew.